Hi, Hope here, and today we're going over Zeromus Extreme. So, let's dive straight into it. First is Abyssal Nox. This is a raid-wide that sets everyone HP to 1 and applies Doom. This is a 10-second debuff that kills on expiration, and is removed by healing the party to full. Next, this attack will continue by highlighting 5 spots on the arena with sigils. These will explode in large AoEs. There should always be 2 safe spots, so dodge away. As the first explodes, the previous safe areas will explode next, so dodge into the bad as the first hits go off. Sable Thread is a party stack with Wild Charge. Have everyone move middle and the tanks stand in front. This hits 6 times. Dark Matter. Both tanks will be targeted with a tank buster that hits 3 times in a large AoE. Visceral Whirl. Similar to normal mode, this leaves 2 small safe zones. Dodge forward and wait for the initial line AoEs to go off. Once these go off, 3 crosses will be left behind. These explode in the directions of their edges. Imagine these as large line AoEs going in 4 directions. This is a bit hard to describe, but here's some tips for finding the safe spot quickly. First, 2 of the crosses will always be in line with each other. Then 1 will be in an adjacent column or 1 column away. This will always leave 2 safe spots, 1 close to the boss and 1 far away. If a cheat sheet is made, I'll be sure to pin it in the comments below. After all of this dodging, we have Flare. 2 towers will spawn and need to be soaked, 1 close to the boss and 1 far away. Have all range go to the far one and all melee go to the forward one. After being soaked, they will each do 4 line AoEs. There are 3 possible safe zones depending on the pattern. I recommend using the markers in the description of the video, as I've adjusted them to mark the harder to see safe spots. Here are clips of the 3 patterns. Void Bio. Zeromus will spawn 10 toxic bubbles. These will move forward in a random order, 1 at a time, and during this, he will cast Visceral Whirl. Your goal is to dodge forward and close to the middle until you can see which side you need to dodge for Visceral Whirl. By the time the initial hit of the whirl, the toxic bubbles will be out of the way, and you can do the same dodge as you did earlier for the crosses. While you should always do your best to dodge this entirely, as long as you only get hit by 1, you should be able to live. Big Bang. All players will receive a prey marker and shortly drop an AoE around themselves. Use your standard spread positions for wall bosses such as these. Additionally, there will be random AoEs on the floor. You can adjust slightly, and there's plenty of position for everyone to have plenty of room to spread. This ends with raid-wide damage that assigns debuffs, which we ignore for now. Void Meteor. Zeromus will spawn many radiating AoEs, so stand in the middle of all for the initial hit. Next, there will be 2 slowly falling meteors that tether to 4 players at the south of the arena. It will tether all supports at the same time, and all DPS at the same time. Either group can be first. These will go off with a slight delay to each other in the order they spawned. Players need to spread away from each other and away from their meteor until the tether stretches without clipping any of the already spawned meteors. The strat I saw the most success with was to have priority within the roles, such as Healer 1, Tank 1, Tank 2, Healer 2 for supports, and Range 1, Melee 1, Melee 2, Range 2 for DPS. These players will fill in from left to right. You will have 3 players on the same side as your tethered meteor, and only 1 player on the other side stretching your tether. This is because the middle meteor in the back will get clipped easily if you try to force 2 players on the far side. There is a few seconds between hits, so don't worry too much about getting directly in position as the second set of players. When the first set gets hit, they will spawn new meteors, leaving less space for the second set of players. It is very important as a first set that you place your tether as close to the meteors as possible without clipping them. After the first set goes off, these players need to move so the second set of players can get in position. And after that, all players need to gravitate towards middle to dodge, as every meteor on the screen will explode in a moderate-sized AoE. Immediately following this, Zero Mist will chain DPS to supports, so group middle until the chains form, then have DPS go north and supports go south. As you are breaking the tethers, Zero Mist will cast Visceral Whirl, so you will need to adjust left or right to go into the safe zone. After reaching the safe zone, you need to start worrying about those debuffs that we ignored. First, Acceleration Bomb will expire. When it expires, if you are in the middle of an action, you will die. What I do is when this debuff hits around 2 seconds, I hit the escape key. This detargets the enemy, and I wait for the debuff to fall off. Now the next thing you need to do is dodge the ground crosses, and as soon as they go off, loosely spread. You don't need to worry too much about having 4 players in this safe spot and 4 players in this safe spot. You have a couple seconds. However, following this, players need to identify if they have Forked Lightning. These players, when it expires, have a small AoE go off around them. They will need to isolate themselves somewhere away from middle and away from the front, because in front of the arena, the 2 tanks will be taking dark matter hits. And finally, the rest of the party will be middle, taking a stack AoE. Following this is Black Hole. The boss will mark 1 player, then cast Fractured Eventide. This is a rotating line AoE that starts either east or west and rotates across the arena. The party should stand north on the same side as the laser starts. The marked player should stand directly east or west, the same side the laser is cleaving. Once the mark disappears, they rejoin the party. Then the laser will start to move, and the party will follow. As you are following this line, the black hole will start to expand. If you get too close, you get sucked in and die. So it's very important that you closely follow the rotating AoE without walking into it, and without being so slow that you get swallowed by the black hole. Next is Big Crunch. This is just dodging to your spread spot in the ground AoEs before a raid wide. Another Abyssal Nox into Stable Thread. Now, the boss will do one of 2 similar things: Sparkling Flare or Branding Flare. Both start with 2 towers that need to be soaked. You will split into light parties for this, 1 left and 2 right. Next, you will move into quadrants like so, with melees north and ranged south. 2 players will be marked with a Chaser AoE. This AoE needs to be placed in the far corner of your quadrant and is delayed following the player. Players will default to taking the AoE north or south, whichever they currently are not at. However, there is a chance that both east players will have the Chaser. In this event, you would simply take them west. Now you're in your quadrant, and it's Sparkling Flare. All players need to spread to avoid clipping each other with the small AoE that happens on them. Remember, the Chaser AoE players get priority on being in the furthest part of the corner. For Branding Flare, players in the quadrant need to stack to share the AoE. You have time to move out of the Chaser AoE and still have them start in the corner. After all of these hits, all players not given Chaser AoEs return to center to free up space. Now we do a little bit of filler repeat mechanics a bit. Void Bio into Visceral Whirl into another Dark Matter. Then you get the opposite flare of the first time. On to the second phase with Rend the Rift. This hits moderately hard on the whole party. Ground AoEs appear again, and you can dodge anywhere you like, as this time there are no player AoEs. This is followed by Nostalgia. Repeated raid-wide damage, so be sure to heal through this. Flow of the Abyss. This has 2 forms. Either enumerations appear, and you stack using the same area and partner as you did for Branding Flare. If it is the alternate, you will have all players targeted with Akrai that will target where the player stands, then hit multiple times. You need to bait and then move. Again, you can use the same quadrants. However, during this, a portal will be opened on the east or west and make 1/3 of the arena unsafe in a line AoE the direction the portal is facing. I recommend these spreads, and you can adjust up or down if your row is cut off by the portals. Chasmic Nails. The boss will telegraph multiple conal hits in order and reopen the portal, possibly in a different location. Rather than overcomplicating this, simply move to a safe row, then find any spot where you can move into it after the telegraph. Ideally, you have at least one hit between the spot you're going into and the one you're standing on being hit. Flow of the Abyss will cast again and do the opposite of the first version. Another Chasmic Nails, more ground AoEs followed by another Nostalgia. From here, the boss repeats until enrage. If your DPS is even moderate, you can fumble through this with many deaths before you ever have to see further into the fight. Thanks for watching as always. If you have any comments or an easier way to do things, leave them in the comments. Have a nice day, and don't forget to subscribe.